Well, we're out in the farm again and it's an absolutely beautiful day. It's a bit cold, but more importantly, there's hardly any wind blowing, so prepare to see some long shots. This particular part of the country is very dry, and as a result, food is pretty hard to come by if you're a greedy animal like a pigeon. The farm we're at today is home to a whole lot of beautiful grey Brahman bulls, which require a special diet to bulk up. Unfortunately, the corn in this feed is like a bird magnet, and these rock pigeons are absolute pigs when it comes to corn. They eat up to a quarter of their body weight every day, so if you have one or two in an area, it's not a problem, but a couple hundred, they start to become a real issue. So in this series of videos, I'll be reducing the number of pigeons to a more manageable amount using my air rifle, and turning these birds into a tasty meal. In the end, everyone wins. I've decided to be quite strategic in my approach, and will be using the birds I shoot as decoys to bring in more birds. I've studied pigeon behavior through years of hunting these birds, whether it's for pest removal purposes, culling, or simply for food, and I know the decoys really do work magic. After scouting the area out, I come up with a pretty foolproof plan.
There's actually a dam right next to the cattle enclosures, so what I've done is I've positioned myself on the dam wall. It gives me a perfect bird's eye view of all the possible perching spots. I've got my rangefinder here, I've got my anemometer, and I've got my range cards. So all I really need to do is range each possible perching spot, find out the wind speed and wind direction, and then set aim points for each possible spot so that when the birds land I can take my shots quickly. We're going to start off close, setting out a couple decoys in one of the empty enclosures, and once I'm happy with that, we're going to push it out to, I don't know, maybe 85 to 100 meters depending on what the wind's doing, so we can see what this rifle can do.
I've learned that these birds are more active during certain times of the day than others, and as they begin coming in for their first course, I have plenty of work on my hands. This one's at about 30 meters. Now here's an interesting fact for you, and something that you may never even have considered before, but I actually had to completely rewrite my holdover cards for this trip because this farm is at an altitude of 1,300 meters or 4,200 feet, which means that the air is a lot thinner than it is down at the coast where I live, and this affects the trajectory of my pellets. I wanted to start off close to make sure my range cards were correct before pushing the ranges out further. Here's a shot that I'd taken the day before that didn't quite go to plan. I probably just got the range wrong, but this pellet passes low. This was also the very first hunt I did with the Hawk Sidewinder scope, and I wanted to use the turrets to make my adjustments when possible, instead of holding off, just for a change. You can see the decoys really beginning to work their magic now. This shot is quite a challenge because I'm shooting through the fence, but I choose my moment carefully and I get a really solid spine shot. Now as you can see here, these birds are lined up very nicely, and I was actually tempted to try to take two birds with one shot. I felt, however, that it would have been a bit irresponsible. I know my rifle is powerful enough to pass through two birds, but I also know that it would have been quite unlikely to get good placement on the bird behind. So I actually aim for the one bird that does give me a clean shot, and it pays off quite nicely. One dead bird is better than one dead bird and one injured bird. And as this bird falls, you can see hundreds of starlings and sparrows flying off. These birds are also a problem, but they get a free pass just for the day while I sort out the pigeons. Another bird lands amongst the decoys, and most people's first thoughts are that this is a really bad angle to take a shot from, but the truth is quite the opposite in fact. The breast meat and flight muscle is all found in the front of the bird, and the organs and spine are on top. Taking a shot from the back means that you don't have to worry about the pellet being deflected by the breastbone. I feel pretty comfortable with the new scope and the altitude change at this point, and I begin to slowly extend my range.
Let's see what we can do. This is a 2 minute of angle shot.
Again, I'm aiming above the flight muscle. When a pigeon flares its tail out like this, it generally means that you've got a really good spine shot. Now we're starting to push the ranges out a little bit further. This is the first shot I'd really call long range so far. I take special care to aim quite high on this one. If you're ever in doubt, aim high, especially at these ranges with a 177, because there's a serious risk of hitting that breastbone and causing injury. The last two shots in this episode are both headshots. I don't often take headshots, but these two are both good examples of what headshots do. As the pellet strikes, the bird starts flapping like crazy, and that's because while the bird's brain is destroyed, the spinal cord is still intact, and the signals that the spinal cord sends out cause the flapping reflex action. It's pretty much the same thing with rabbits' legs or rats' tails. Here's the last shot. It's another headshot, this time from 65 meters, and it's the same deal. Uncontrolled flapping, and that's another one in the bag. In part 2, we'll continue where we left off, and we'll really start pushing the ranges out. Subscribe to stay notified, and I'll see you then.